Good afternoon, students. We are now at the last leg of our subject, Rizal's Life and Works, and this afternoon we are going to discuss a very important chapter in the life of Dr. Rizal, which is his life in the Pitan. So question, why did Rizal come to the Pitan? Did he come to the Pitan on his own, as in voluntarily, or was he forced? The answer was he was actually implicated for treason. That's why he was sent or deported man ang term to the Pitan in order for him to be reformed. Okay, so Rizal was brought under a maximum security to the steamer SS Cebu headed by Captain Delgras on the 15th of July 1892, which sailed to the Pitan. Prior to this, Dr. Jose Rizal has been part of the propaganda movement, and as what we had discussed earlier, the propaganda movement is a movement that encourages reforms so that Spain would acknowledge the Philippines as a province and therefore give its citizens ample human rights, as well as a restoration of the government. However, because it did not sit well with the local Spanish authorities, Rizal had to be brought to the Pitan in order to give him, probably in order to teach him a lesson, or for him to be less of a threat to the Spanish government. Okay? So Rizal carried a letter by Father Pablo Pastels, the superior of the Jesuit Society in the Philippines, to Father Antonio Obac, a Jesuit missionary in the Pitan. So Father Superior Pastels informed Father Obac that Rizal could live at the parish convent on the following conditions: that Rizal publicly retract his errors concerning religion and make statements that were clearly pro-Spanish and against the revolution. Okay, as what we had learned in our previous lessons. So apart from the propaganda movement that was already moving in the Philippines, there is also its twin, the revolution, which was a more dynamic, which was a movement that carried with it the use of violence, okay, which was kind of medyo lisod. It's hard to keep the peace if the revolution is still there. So Rizal is supposed to retract his statements showing his support. And second is to perform the church rites and make a general confession of his past life. And third, that henceforth he conduct himself in an exemplary manner as a Spanish subject from a man of religion. However, Rizal did not agree. So did not agree because number one, that would tantamount to going against what he was preaching, or it would tantamount to going against what he was writing. Although he did not fully support the revolution, because again people had to egg him in order for him to publicly state that he would allow the revolution only if Aguinaldo would be the one who would be heading it, or something like that. But it does not mean also that he would go against what his countrymen desire. Another thing is that these kinds of methods actually perpetuate the stereotype or perpetuate the scenario wherein the Spanish authority had a lot more say than the Filipino. It was an obvious showcase of inequality. At the same time, it was also an abuse of human rights. Okay? So consequently, he lived in the house of the command captain Carnicero, and the two actually got along very well. So he admired the kind and generous Spanish captain. Okay, so for us to not be racially discriminating even towards these people living at this era, not all Spaniards were like Father Damaso. There were actually Spaniards who were also pro-Filipino. So which makes me think about this mga international bitaw na mga movements, for example, Black Lives Matter or kaya kanang Stop of Asian Hate. So the problem with those kinds of movements is that it tries to dismantle white supremacy, which is actually very much present. So there are those people who think because they are a fairer color or because they are of kind of white race, they tend to think that they are superior. However, this would not hold true for some people who are just kind-natured. Kind-natured despite of their coloring. And diba, if you try to pinpoint or you try to stereotype people according to their color, you're also being a racist. So ignore the Shopee notifications. So wala ko i-order sa Shopee or anything. But it's just there. I forgot to mute it. Anyway, so Rizal and Carnicero were very good friends. Okay? So please do not mind that his Spanish. Not all Spanish people are villains. And not all Filipinos are heroes. And if you are going to learn about our history, there are a lot of traitors who are Filipinos. So, Rizal wrote a poem, a Don Ricardo Carnicero on August 26, 1892, on the occasion of the captain's birthday. So, there's the house of Carnicero, and actually these two got along so well that they gambled a lot. Okay, Rizal was not a smoker, he was not a heavy drinker, but he was more into gambling and of course to women. We will discuss the women in the life of Dr. Rizal in our next video, but for now, Rizal was much of a gambler. So on September 21, 1892, the mail boat Butuan was approaching the town of Dapitan carrying a lottery ticket number 9736, jointly owned by Captain Carnicero, Dr. Jose Rizal, and Francisco Equilor, who won the second prize of 20,000 in the government of owned in Manila lottery. So 20,000, Rizal actually got a share of 6,200. He gave 2,000 pesos to his father, 200 to Basa in Hong Kong, and the rest of his money he invested by purchasing agricultural lands along the coast of Talisay. So there are actually, I'm going to show you the three pesetas that amount to Rizal as allotted for the lottery tickets every month. So naging siya ginagahin para sa iyang sugal. So this was his only vice, commented Wenceslao Iretana, his first Spanish biographer and former enemy. Okay, so I don't know how to think of it kung ang magsulat sa imo ang biography would be a former enemy. Okay, Rizal and Pastels often debated on religion. So the debate started when Pastels sent Rizal a book by Sarda, along with an advice that Rizal should desist from his mehedaras, or his foolishness in viewing religion from the perspective of individual judgment and self-esteem. So the debate can be read in 4 letters. Rizal was bitter against the friars because they commit abuses under the cloak of religion, and Father Pastels tried to bring back to Catholicism's Rizal by telling him that human intelligence is limited and thus he needs the guidance of God. So behind the debate, Pastels and Rizal were friends, as evidently pictured when Pastels gave Rizal a copy of Imitación de Cristo by Father Tomas Kempis, and Rizal gave Pastels a bust of St. Paul, which he had made Rizal continue to hear Mass and celebrate religious events. So Rizal challenges a Frenchman to a duel. So Mr. Juan Lardet, a French businessman whom Rizal had a conflict. Rizal and Father Sanchez's relationship. So in his aspiration to reconcile Rizal with the church, Father Pastels sent to Dapitan Father Oba, cura of Dapitan, Father Jose Villaclara, cura of Dipolog, Father Francisco Paulo de Sanchez, Rizal's favorite teacher at Ateneo de Manila. So Estudios sobre la Lengua Tagala manuscript, which Rizal gave to Sanchez on his birthday, which is the study of the Tagalog language. Okay, so Rizal had a very idyllic life in Dapitan, and if you can observe the structures in the Dapitan Shrine Park, or Dapitan na pag-pronounce, Rizal Shrine Park, Rizal Shrine, yes, you would see there that it is very nice. It's at the foot of the mountain, at the same time it faces the beautiful blue sea. So Rizal actually has a lot of things going there for him. Okay. So among his family members who visited Rizal were his mother, his sisters Trinidad, Maria, and Narcisa, nephews Teodosio, Estanislao, Maurico, and Prudencio. So Rizal built a house by the seashore of Talisay surrounded by fruit trees, a school for boys, and a hospital for patients. Again, if it weren't for COVID, we could have freely visited the shrine. But siguro, you can now I will link another video which shows the structures built by Dr. Jose Rizal there. Okay, so Rizal also had enemies. He had a lot of friends, and at the same time, he had a lot of enemies there in Dapitan. So one of his major enemies would be spies. So these spies would actually bring reports towards the Spanish governments in the capital and thereby implicating him more. And thus, it would affect the severity of his punishment or severity of his isolation from his family and friends in Manila. So Pablo Mercado is an assumed name of the spy who visited Rizal at his house and pretended to be a relative by showing a photo of Rizal and a pair of buttons with the initials PM as evidence of kinship. So the spy offered to be Rizal's courier of letters for the patriots in Manila, and Rizal became suspicious and wanted to throw the spy outside, but considering his value and late hour of the night, he offered the spy to spend the night at his house. The next day, he sent the spy away. The spy stayed in the Dapitan and spread talks among the people that he was a relative to Rizal, and Rizal went to the Comandancia and reported the impostor to Captain Juan Stiges, the successor of Carnicero. Sitges ordered